everybody. Scotty Milas, ScottMilasFranchiseCoach.com. All things considered franchising, another episode. What's your know and know your why? As I sit down and I just hit the record button and just having a general conversation beforehand with our guest, who I'll announce in a minute here. I realized, or we both realized, that Thanksgiving is a week from tomorrow. So you'll get a perspective of when this is being recorded, but holy cow, the year is almost over. 6-7 weeks to the end of the year in 2023. Anyway, I'm really excited to have my guest today with us, Emily Anderson. Emily is just one of those people that I really enjoy working with, because she doesn't present herself as a big blimp on the radar, but she operates her business and the brand she represents as a bigger blimp on the radar. Very low-key approach. She is a seasoned franchise recruiter, extensive experience placing individuals, partners, and working with private equity groups and franchise investments all over the country. What's unique about her is she uses not a sales approach, but a balanced and educational approach, which is the way that it should be in franchising. I have always told my clients that if you run into a developer who's trying to sell you something, run fast, because that's typically usually the red flag. And as you can see, Emily is shaking her head. Emily is committed to empowering others in making complete and well-informed business decisions that lead to powerful partnerships between the franchisee and franchisor. So, and we'll touch base on that, because there is a connection. And for those of you who have heard me or spoken to me, know that you definitely don't have to absolutely be in love with the brand and the people that you're going to be partnering with, but you do have to get along. There has to be that connection. So welcome, Emily, all the way from the West Coast, opposite ends of the spectrum here. Welcome to All Things Considered Franchising. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Scott. I am so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, you and I have had the opportunity to work on some placements, I guess, or recruitments over the last 18 months, 24 months. There is a similar background. You've probably, like I said, you have this smaller blimp on the radar as far as your tenure. It's not boastful. It's not something you're promoting, but you have a very, very tenured experience within the franchising industry. I would say that your finger is on the pulse on the development side. You really can make that connection to what is right and what may not be right for potential franchisees that are looking to come into the BrandONE portfolio. And of course, when we work together on brands as well. Take us through some of your history of how you landed into the franchising industry, because I've always said you don't wake up one morning or get up on the podium and get your high school degree or college degree and say, hey, I'm going into franchising. So how did you end up into the franchising industry, and really what has connected you or kept you within the industry and not kind of branching out and staying out of it? I mean, what's your connection to it?
Yeah, the way I entered franchising in hindsight is almost comical. So I'll say, prior to franchising, I am a third generation entrepreneur. My grandfather was a minor league baseball player, actually. Wow. When he was done playing baseball, he started his own business. My father, when he was about 25 years old, he started his own business. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I actually started my own business in my early 20s, and I ran that for about 4 years. I was a one-woman show. I didn't know how to scale or grow. I didn't know if I could afford to hire. I was, what do they say, building the plane as it was in the air, as I was flying it. And I got to the point, where I needed to scale or bail. And so I went back and did a corporate gig for a while, background in communications and business development, if you will. And I met someone in franchising, and I will tell you, I had this internal conflict because at first I thought, franchising? Ew. I'm an entrepreneur, as if franchising is not entrepreneurial, right? uh, I thought being an entrepreneur meant doing it alone. And entrepreneurship is one of the most complicated things you could ever do. Why would anybody do it alone? So entrepreneurship has nothing to do with being alone. But I did think that it was all about slinging the $5 footlong or the golden
Right.
arches.
It's an
But
interesting way of putting it.
yeah, yeah. And so I met someone in franchising. There are some really people like yourself, just some really exceptional people. And I thought, wow, there's a lot I can learn here. And so I kind of got involved with doing some business development and learning more about franchises and educating people on the opportunities. And as I became educated on the various franchise models out there, it completely opened my eyes. The opportunity to participate in an individual, an investor, or a family in making such a massive decision, and to really advocate and inform them as they're making this decision has been very fulfilling. And then to get to see them, and you know what it's like when you
Yep.
see them years later and they say, Scott, oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know,
The personal
it,
satisfaction that you did, you took them down the right path, or at least them help make that validated decision to go down that path.
yeah. And the fact that they don't have to do it alone, they can still have all the freedom and the success and the independence that they want of being a business owner, but they don't need to recreate the wheel.
Right. You brought up something, and I just want to touch on it before we kind of take a deeper dive into um, BrandONE, and the brands that you're working on, and some of the brands that and one of the brands that I think BrandONE made an exceptional, very professional decision on to hold off on future development. We'll get into the reason why. Not a lot of brands would do that, because they think the more I sell, the more opportunity I have to be successful. And I think we'll touch on that. But you brought up the connection between being an entrepreneur and a franchisee, and I don't know what it is. I don't know where it came from, but you'll see a lot of negativity that owning a franchise is not being some sort of independent business. It's part of a bigger business, and you shouldn't support it. So, and I've never understood that, because, and maybe it's the people that are saying that, maybe they made a bad decision when they chose a certain franchise and did it succeed. Maybe they didn't follow the system, or maybe the franchisor just kind of fell off the tracks. I mean, that has happened. There are some bad apples out there. So, as you look at it, the connection between being an entrepreneur and a franchisee, how do you see it, and see it as a benefit for somebody who may be looking to diversify a portfolio, somebody who's wants to expand, that maybe already be an independent business owner that doesn't own a franchise but owns a business, or somebody who's looking to take a deeper dive into this and learn more and become a franchisee for the first time?
Mm-hmm. So I was able to do some self-reflection as I started to learn about franchising, in terms of, why did I think entrepreneurship looked one way when it can look so many different ways? And so I am a self-proclaimed word nerd. So I looked up the definition, because there's a lot of words that we use in regular conversation, and occasionally I'll think, wait, does that really mean what I think it means? And
Right.
so I looked up the definition of entrepreneur, and it's a person who organizes and operates a business, taking on the financial risk in order to do so. So the thing
Okay.
about franchising, you're still organizing and operating a business. You're still taking on the financial risk. However, with franchising, the risk is substantially lower. Franchises have such a higher success rate
Right.
than any other entrepreneurial path that I'm aware of. So going the route of a franchise model, you're still owning and operating a business. You are still putting some skin in the game, but guess what? You're mitigating risk. How smart is
Right.
that?
Right. No, that's a great point. You mentioned that tie-in that when people think franchising, they automatically think the 5 foot, the $5 foot long and the golden arches. And franchising goes well beyond that. I mean, that's just two of maybe 4,000 different brands within within the franchise system on a worldwide basis.
Mhm.
So, and BrandONE, as taking this into BrandONE, which is a brand development company that helps helps companies that maybe were independent and now they want to scale and get into and they're looking at franchising, helping them franchise the business, scale the business, offering franchises. When you're looking at the brands that BrandONE has in your portfolio and the connection to the franchisees that you're seeing, that you're talking to, is there a common denominator, common thread that ties the true entrepreneur that you just mentioned to these brands or just wanting to own a business? I mean, what do you see the connection for somebody wanting to be a entrepreneur, own a business?
Mm. So over the years, that has changed a little bit, but there have been some common drivers. What I'm really seeing and hearing are people are looking to have more autonomy. They're looking to have more freedom. They are looking to have more impact. I work with many professionals that maybe have been very successful in a corporate background, and they understand, hey, I know how to drive results. I know how to achieve. I would like to think that professionals in the workplace have earned some autonomy over the years and decades that
Right.
they've been so committed, but unfortunately, that's not happening. And it seems like the more they progress up the corporate ladder, the more corporate owns them, as
Right.
opposed to having the opposite. So a lot of them are just saying, I want to have impact, I want to have control, I want to have freedom. And they're looking at businesses that are recession resistant, which is
Mm-hmm.
an area that BrandONE really focuses on. They're looking for businesses with leadership that has incredible integrity and principles. They're looking for a franchise where the other franchisees in that brand are like-minded professionals in terms of sharing the same values and principles that they have and they embody
Right.
themselves. So now I have worked with some private equity
Right.
in
I wanted to get into that because I think that's important in
yeah.
the in the mindset of somebody saying, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that any you could be a entry level entrepreneur to get into franchising, but you can also be somebody who is in private equity looking to invest in multiple types of businesses categories, and you have a lot of experience working with the private equity. And I want to touch on that because, and this isn't a kick in the backside to some to developers out there, franchise recruiters, but there is a little bit more of the approach may be the same, the process, but there has to be a little bit more of and I don't know what the word I'm using. I want to be humble here. A more detailed approach. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, or more of a timely process when you're working with the private equity group. And some people just don't have the patience to do that.
Mm. Yeah, what I found, and I think you nailed it, because when I am educating someone on a franchise opportunity, I'm the franchise and the model in and of itself is the same. But the process that I take someone in private equity through and the pace is going to mirror the pace and the information that they need, as opposed to maybe a husband and wife team or a parent and their young adult child that is never owned a business before, that maybe doesn't have the financial background. And some people just want to
Right.
get straight to the numbers, and some people need to take a more holistic and self-reflective approach. But ultimately, it needs to mirror uh, their pace and ensure they're getting the information that they need to make a well-informed decision.
Well, in a private equity situation, it would seem to me there are a few moving parts to the decision process as far as people that are
Yeah.
involved in that process than the individual or husband and wife or a family that may be looking to work with. Um, in your working with private equity, um, what have you seen as far as the categories or models? And again, we don't have to name names, but we can stay within the industries that you're seeing that the P&E side is really interested in. I mean, obviously, you mentioned numbers have to make sense to P&E. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a given. And
Yeah.
anybody who thinks that that's not part of it, probably shouldn't be talking to a P&E group anyway, because it's all about the numbers. And
Right.
in a P&E group, numbers don't lie. So what is it, or how do you see the P&E group, where their focus is within the franchising industry, and what are some of their hot buttons or categories that they're really interested in?
Yeah, first and foremost, it's always about a semi-absentee or semi-passive ownership model,
Mm-hmm.
essentially a franchise model that is manager run. So they're not expected at any point in time to be working in the business on a regular basis, but more of it as an executive where they're managing the manager and really scaling the business.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm just going to go ahead and use they're generally attracted to the really unsexy industries. And what I've heard from a lot of professionals in private equity, it's like that it's not sexy, but you can take it to the bank. And
Right.
oftentimes these are industries and businesses that have been around for decades, but there's nothing flashy and new and trendy about it. It's just the tried and true models. Um, Laundromats, home restoration, uh, brick and mortar, sometimes in fitness, beauty, wellness kinds of things. These are some examples of industries where they look and they say, wow, we've been cutting hair for decades. We'll probably continue to cut hair
Right.
for decades. I'm not going to cut the hair, but I can have a manager there managing the team of, stylists and whatnot. So those are just some general examples, but they're usually looking at something that is passive, highly scalable. And hey, if there is a business opportunity that may also have a real estate play or some really nice tax benefits, that usually raises an eyebrow. And there are a few franchise models out there where there is a real estate play, or maybe
Right.
there's an equipment opportunity where you can accelerate the depreciation and get some really nice
Exactly.
tax write-offs every year that you open one. So private equity is usually really focused on long term.
Long
Long
term. Okay. Yeah, because the mindset would be is that the P&E would be looking to turn something around really quickly. But you're feeling in working with P&E companies or organizations that are looking to invest in certain categories, they're really looking at more long term. Now, again, long term is a definition that it may be different than everybody may have a different definition of what long term is, but they're not in it for a year or 24 months. They're looking to really build this and scale it.
Yeah, and when you think about franchising, where franchising tends to be most successful is it goes into industries that are proven and have a very high demand, but are highly fragmented. And what a franchise does is it goes in, it meets the demand through more efficient branding, marketing, operational accounting systems, and it captures market share. So rarely do we see a franchise that is in a really hot, new, trendy industry. Usually
Right.
franchising is in the tried and true, right? And it's in just another way to mitigate risk. It essentially creates consolidation.
Right. Yeah,
So
I used to tell people that look, in franchising, your object or your mission is to be able to, in most cases, please the masses, because that's why there are so many pizza places, so many burger places, so many chicken places, sub places, you go down the list in food, because those places please to the masses versus,
Right.
only a select group.
Right.
You're part of an organization called BrandONE. And I've looked at BrandONE when I look at people like Kurt and Mike, the founders of this organization. Their tenure in the franchising industry is just, it's endless. The history pages that those two have written within the industry and their position within the industry and how they're regarded in the industry are really second to none. It's if you need to bend somebody's ear about an idea in the franchising industry, there's no better two people to call up than Kurt and Mike. And BrandONE has its positioned itself with its brand portfolio with brands that really do kind of fit well into not only that husband and wife team, that small entrepreneur looking to eventually scale, but in slower steps, but also working with private equity. And I think that's key because not every brand, I'm sure every franchisor would love to work with a private equity group, but some brands just don't have the position or the history. I call the validation data, because as we said before, numbers don't lie, that shows what the brands that you have in your portfolio can be part of a private equity portfolio. And one of the brands that, and I mentioned this a couple of minutes ago, a brand that you and I actually got connected on was a brand called LaundroLab. I call it the quarters business because I remember back in the late 70s, my friend and I, he's still a very good friend of mine, he's a very successful entrepreneur, we wanted to buy a laundromat. And one of the fascinating things is that to us, it was just quarters. Obviously there was a lot more. We were young and naive back then, but you went in, you unloaded, you took out the change machine and you dumped your quarters in and you went to the bank. But the laundromat business, wash and fold, is a very popular model. And recently you took on a brand, LaundroLab, as I mentioned, and really have hit some or exceeded goals within the first 12 months of franchising this business. You hit over 100 units sold. And you decided, and an executive decision was made to hold off on future development until Q2 2023. At least that's the short-term goal, because you wanted to get these franchises opened. It's important to support the franchisees and invoke now the time to real estate. How important of a decision is that for a company like BrandONE and reflect on its mission statement to support franchisees? Because not a lot of brands would do that. A lot of brands would just keep going and, whatever the real estate, operational side through them, they deal with it at that time. What was the reasoning behind that?
I think it really speaks to integrity. It absolutely speaks to integrity. So we have awarded over 100 territories to 28 to 30 franchise partners. And we pause development because we want to ensure that everyone is opening, getting successful, getting the support, accessing all of the systems, everything that we had promised. And, when you had said that the validation data, the data doesn't lie. I believe it would be irresponsible for us to continue awarding franchise licenses without increasing the amount of data and validation data that we have to our candidates. So what I love about LaundroLab and BrandONE and the integrity here is that this is an example of a business that is very well capitalized, that has exceptional infrastructure, has an incredible leadership team that is poised for development and support. So before we there's an expression that Michael uses sometimes. He said, sometimes people just want the candy. and they just want more and more candy, as in
Right.
kind of awarding franchise license. So we can pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, look, we're at 150 territories, 200 territories. He's like, oh, that candy's going to make you sick. You got to stop. Eat something nutritious for a while, right?
Right, right. No, you're absolutely right. And it works on the franchisee side too. I mean, sometimes ego gets in the way, instead of just signing on for 3, 4, or 5, they say, well, I want 20. Well, why do you want 20? What's your business model? What's your structure for running these 20 in the time frame, the development schedule? And they kind of look at you with a deer in headlights and say, oh, I just want 20, and it's more of, I want to tell my friends I bought 20 of this or 30 of this. And there's really, and that hurts the brand, because the brand is putting the development, a royalty stream on hold to get those open. And if they don't open, we're talking about Laundry Lab in the BrandONE portfolio, but BrandONE has some pretty unique brands. One of the ones that has always caught my attention is Verlo. You just brought on another new pet concept, pet industry, as you said. You were talking about hair. We're always going to need haircuts. We're always going to need hairstyling. You may not do it yourself, but it's a business. The pet industry is the same way. Mattresses are the same way. We pretty much all sleep on a mattress. Certain things just don't go away. How does BrandONE, when selecting a brand to bring on board, and you can talk about some of the other brands that you have in your portfolio, you have a couple of pet concepts, but how does BrandONE connect with these brands and kind of look at it as far as, how do I grow this? Is there a connection to it being a common thread that we all need this and go for there? It pleases the masses. We talked about the masses.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that question makes sense. I may be babbling here a little bit, but it's always unique. You're not just bringing on anybody. You're bringing on bands, I think, that focus in on the masses.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is, I would say, one of the common threads in terms of the product, the product or service that the brands offer is they are consistently in a tried and true industry, and they have innovation, something that is unique, where they are meeting the demand in a new or innovative way. So, for example, you mentioned Verlo, and Verlo is a mattress company. Now, we've been sleeping on mattresses for a little while now, right?
Right.
I can drive down the street and I can see some mattress stores. So what's so unique about Verlo is the way that they customize the mattress and make it on site for the customer. And today we customize everything. I mean, I was 19 years old and assistant manager in a Starbucks when we just started customizing our coffee, right?
Right.
Non-fat
Absolutely.
milk, vanilla, whatever. We wear custom orthotics in our shoes. We customize our vehicle. I'd like this color, this leather interior, this sound system. We customize our laptops, the color, the storage, the RAM. We customize so many things today. I think we take it for granted. And yet, what don't we customize is the thing that we spend about a third of our life on. When you think that we sleep 8 hours a day, 8 out of 24 hours, why aren't we customizing our mattress?
People in franchise don't sleep that long, though. I'm only kidding you.
Laundry Lab has, what's unique about Laundry Lab is it is a tech-forward, modernized laundromat that has proprietary technology for a pickup and drop-off service that captures larger market share. You mentioned a couple in the pet industry. So BrandONE, I mean, what I love about BrandONE, when you look at our portfolio of businesses, we have businesses where the total investment is 80,000 up to 1.8 million.
Right. Yep.
Right. Really run the gamut. The pet related businesses have a very unique approach to the proprietary methodology, et cetera. So not only is there something tried and true married with something innovative in all of our brands, but before we partner with a brand to support their recruitment, our saying is we work with people we like, trust, and respect. How
Yep.
simple is that?
Yep.
Who do we like, trust, and respect? Their leadership team, their integrity. Are they well capitalized? Are they committed to sustainable and meaningful growth? Or do they just want too much candy?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you ask people, hey, for example, and this is a little bit of a tangent, Scott, but this is my pet peeve, and I'd be curious if you share this pet peeve. Certain publications every year post a, top 100, top 500 entrepreneur list. So that's great. But what's the criteria that they're using? And what drives me nuts is when they rank a franchise as the top of the list because the sales team sold 500 licenses.
Exactly.
But who cares if there are 500 licenses awarded if none of them are open, happy, successful, or getting the support they need?
Right. You just hit the nail on the head, and I think this separates BrandONE in your approach to, it's not only about awarding franchises, but it's also about getting people opened and making sure franchisees, maybe it's that $80,000 investment, that person can become scalable, becomes profitable, starts building their wealth and legacy, or the person who's the company that's the private equity that is going to get a return on investment, 5-10 years from now as they build and scale. Because when you think about that $80,000 investment, that person who's investing 80 to 100,000, and the private equity company that's investing maybe millions, a couple of million, the end game is the same. It's the end game in their back of their mind. But more importantly, it's the end game for BrandONE is the same. We want to take that private equity group, make sure that they're successful, and we want to make sure that $100,000 investment franchisee is just as successful, and the importance is the same. Is that correct? I mean, is that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing when I'm speaking with candidates, and sometimes they're looking at multiple opportunities, and if they tell me, oh, this other franchise is selling so fast, they told me if I don't sign next week, I'm going to lose the opportunity because they've awarded 500 franchises. And I'm like, well, do you want 500 people in line in front of you? And do you trust the leadership and their integrity to have your back?
Right.
Move forward.
Yeah, and I think that's the intellectual part of what you and I do in educating anybody about what to be looking at. Sure, they like you said, sure, Subway has 48,000 locations, but where is what does that do for you? I mean, sure, there's brand awareness, we get it. But, I used to tell people when I was involved in, kind of the burger business, I used to tell people, I go, look, they say, well, there's so many burger places. And I go, yeah, there are, and there's a reason for it. We discussed that earlier, pleasing the masses. I said, the difference is that you got to be better than everybody else. I mean, it comes down to customer service, the franchisor providing that operational and marketing support for its franchisees. So again, there's a lot to consider, and that's what someone like yourself and BrandONE and the development team, Michael, and everybody else that's involved really focuses in on what's best for the franchisee. And I would say that it's safe to say, Emily, that BrandONE is not shy about telling someone, whether it's $100,000 investment or a $1.9 million investment, that, hey, this isn't for you. This isn't best for us and our franchisees that are already in the system, but we also think it may not be best for you, and kind of walk away. I think the saying is walk away friends.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So,
and I've used an expression a couple of times just during our conversation where I talk about franchises are awarded, and franchises, in my opinion, when it's done right, franchises are awarded. They're not bought. And so in order to be awarded a franchise, that means that the franchisor has complete faith in you, and they believe in your ability to be successful. If it's not a fit, we're doing everyone a favor by the end of the day as saying, hey, this isn't a good fit, and let's part ways as good friends. But then the benefit of working with somebody like you, Scott, and I don't think, when you and I have worked together quite a bit, I don't think you've ever recommended a franchise to someone when they weren't a fit. But another benefit of working with you is they get to look at a couple of different options that have been thoroughly vetted and thoroughly screened.
Yep.
Plus they get your education on top of it. So,
Well, I appreciate that. And I think as I've gotten to work with you over the years, and we've worked with some pretty high net worth individuals, people who are pretty savvy to business. I think that the approach that you're taking in BrandONE, kind of that even keel, we're not here to bend any arms or, push anybody over the goal line unless they want to, get in the goal, into the end zone, is unique. And I don't think I would expect anybody. I mean, transparency is great. Hey, Bob. Hey, Mary. There is somebody else looking at the territory, but we want you to take as much time as you want to make a decision anyway. So it's what's on the horizon for Emily in franchising? I mean, is one of the things that I've always caught my attention about working with you is your excitement and passion about this industry. I don't think I've ever, had a conversation with you, just say, hey, look, we don't want to do that. There's always a way to work something out with you. And that's unique because it's easy to throw it under the carpet and walk away and say, you know what, kind of a little bit more patience than I do. So where does Emily see herself in the industry with BrandONE? Is this just the beginning for BrandONE? I mean, if we were reaching out now and somebody from private equity or somebody that was looking at franchising for the first time and we wanted them to pick up the phone and call me, to call you, or they call you directly, what are some of the things that you should be telling them about BrandONE and you as a development within BrandONE?
oh, I don't think we have enough time for me to answer that question. I'll take a stab at it. BrandONE, we have about 15 people part of BrandONE. I think when we added up our experience in franchising, it was almost 300 years. I mean,
wow.
Significant. Yeah. The people at BrandONE have a level of integrity and excellence that I have never encountered. I'm so honored to be a part of this group and this team. I do absolutely love what I do, and I believe in what I do. And I even have to warn sometimes when I'm meeting with a candidate, I always promise complete transparency because the truth always comes out. So let's
there are no
start
secrets
with
in franchising.
There's no secrets. This is a regulated industry. There's a high degree of transparency. Out of respect for people's time, I just lead with the truth, right?
Right.
And I do need to warn them. I said, hey, if I sound really excited, I apologize if I sound salesy. I just really love business. And right now, I'm focusing on a pet-related business that is, oh, people can't see me talking with my hands right now. There are no words how much I love this business and getting to talk about dogs. One thing that's really special to me and not commonly known about BrandONE is that a number of members of the BrandONE team actually own franchises in the BrandONE portfolio.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, more than you would realize. So for example, one person's brother brought a BrandONE brand. Somebody's spouse bought a BrandONE brand. Many examples. What's next for Emily in the future? Well, when my son graduates high school, my husband and I might be buying a franchise. So we're starting a franchise, you know?
Yep, yep, yep. Well, that's great. You know, Emily, I got to tell you that this has been very informative conversation. You bring a kind of a light to franchising, a shining light. I think it's and I got to tell you, even some of the candidates that we have worked with that kind of decided to not do this for whatever reason, and and again, more of a validated decision, or the timing wasn't right. The validated decision wasn't at the right time. I don't think I've ever had anybody tell me that Emily, was trying to arm wrestle me into a decision, wasn't salesy, and even BrandONE, their professional approach. So I think that's a high five to you and to everyone over at BrandONE. And I have to be transparent. I don't know everybody at BrandONE, but I know a few of the players, and it's always been great listening to them and speaking at conferences and so forth. So any closing thoughts, anything you want to share before? Unfortunately, we're out of time, not out of time, but I don't want to, I want to, I want to keep track of the time here as a professional courtesy for you, but anything you want to share, anything you want to close with, and anything anybody should be thinking about if even they're, thinking about picking up the phone?
Yeah, well, one thing that I love about working with you, and we keep using the term education, is I would look at this as a learning process and not necessarily a buying process.
Right.
So if anyone listening is thinking that it's all the $5 foot long or the golden arches like I was, great news is there is a whole world of opportunities that you can learn about.
Absolutely.
So I'd have Scott, do they have your contact information if they
Yeah,
want to?
actually, we're going to be putting it up towards the end here. Do you want to share any contact information with anybody, your email address, if anybody just has some questions or wants to know more about BrandONE, or maybe there's some private equity groups that like to, kind of, open the door a little bit, because nobody in private equity likes to open the door wide open right away, but
I would start with our website, which is BrandONE FD, as in franchise development, brandonefd.com. Happy to give my email address, but it's kind of long and hard
well, we'll
to.
put it down on the bottom there. It's going to
Okay.
show up on the bottom down there.
Yeah. So if you want to provide my email address, my direct phone number, our website, if somebody just wants to pick up the phone and have a conversation with me, happy to chat. Happy to chat.
Great, great. Emily, hey, look, I wish you and your family a great Thanksgiving. The holidays are approaching. It's a great time of year. I wish you peace and prosperity and good health, as they say. I look forward to continuing working with you and everyone over at BrandONE. So, but this is Scotty Milas, ScottMilasFranchiseCoach.com. You've been listening to another chapter episode of All Things Considered Franchising. Know what's your no and know your why. I've been talking to Emily Anderson over at BrandONE, and just follow the information to reach out to either one of us. But certainly like to wish everyone a happy holiday season, and we will catch you the next time. 3, 2, 1.